Yo, what's going on, guys? Matthew V. Haynes here, aka the Clockmaster, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my thoughts for episode 6 to episode 8 of Skeleton Crew. Now, I know the previous videos I've done on this channel were all breakdowns, in-depth breakdowns for the episodes, but I was a little bit late on this, and the show was already done, so to me, it doesn't make any sense to do the in-depth breakdowns anymore at this point, since everyone already knows what's happening here. But I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. I wanted to still give you my general thoughts and opinions for these episodes briefly, and also just go over my overall review for the series as a whole. So just my thoughts and where I think things are gonna go and how I'm just generally feeling. So episode 6, I have to say, probably is my favorite episode, and for a couple of reasons. And one of the reasons why it was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, which, if you guys have followed anything, if you've been on the channel for a while, you guys know that I love Bryce Dallas Howard. I love all of the episodes that she's done in The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and everything. I love her work in Star Wars in general. So I was really feeling this episode. She's one of the things that she does really well is making a lot of emotional stories and making you feel for characters and having these amazing character moments. We've seen this in The Mandalorian, we've seen this in Ahsoka. She's just really good at writing characters. I think that's just one of her strong suits. That's one of her biggest strengths, is just taking, characters that you would never think you would do anything about. Like, I'll never forget the Mandalorian episode where Mando had this moment with this, this woman, and I keep forgetting the number of the episode, but it was kind of like this, let's have this training arc and defend the planet kind of episode. But we never saw this character again, but her character had such a lasting impact on me, just simply because of the way that Bryce Dallas Howard was able to direct the character and write her story and make you feel for the character. And I haven't seen this episode in a while, but I still remember a lot about what happened in that episode. It was just such a great, well put together episode. And it's the same thing I can say for episode 6. It was just really awesome. And this just goes back into, to bring it back to the episode itself specifically, what I really loved about it was the exploration of KB's stories. And I mean, she's been a very quiet character up until this point. We haven't really seen too much about her. She's just been a big mystery. They made a little joke about her being a Jedi and all that stuff like that. And we'll talk more about, the overall conclusion of the series. But what we learned about her was that she had these android kind of like tech built into her. She's like an android, essentially. She had this accident and she relies on this technology to move, to talk, not to talk, but just to move and have just general mobility. And, it just seems like a lot of her sensory functions start to slow down once she's not getting regular maintenance. And she had this moment where she kind of stood up to Fern, I guess. She stood up for herself and was able to defend how she was feeling, saying that Fern doesn't necessarily want to hear what she has to say, because that's just always been her perspective. She doesn't feel like she'll have any friends. She doesn't feel like she can make any other friends outside of Fern. So she was just kind of reliant on just sitting back and letting Fern do whatever she has to do or say whatever she has to say. And obviously, towards the end of the episode, we found out that that wasn't the case, and that, they made up and they had this good moment. It was really cute and adorable. And obviously they care about each other. They love each other. They're best friends. But KB just had a moment. She always felt neglected. And that was something that was also really shown in the episode as well. Like, the characters are just always off to the corner talking. Neil and KB and Fern are always just, they're not KB, Neil and Wim and Fern are just talking in a corner, and then KB's input is not being asked. She's not being asked for her input or how she's feeling or anything like that. She's kind of off to the wayside. And she even makes a statement in the episode saying, just because you can't find a way doesn't mean one doesn't exist, So it was a big moment for her. Again, just kind of seeing how she feels, how she perceives the world, how she sees herself. And then obviously her and Wim have a moment where she basically helps him to help fix her issues. She had a thing in her head that needed to get some repairs, and Wim saved her life. And it was a really good episode. Episodes like this and moments like this is what really make me like a lot of this type of stuff, and really good writing it shows. I personally just really enjoyed this episode a lot for these moments. Another big moment for this too was the kids adapted in this episode. They kind of came into their own, and they were able to get off the planet on by their own power. They didn't have to rely on Captain Jod Silvo anymore to do whatever they had to do. They had to get off. And then another cool thing too was just the ship was just covered by the armor and everything like that, which obviously that was something that we found out later on throughout the rest of the episodes, obviously, that this was an At-Atten ship, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through. But yeah, the ship was just covered over this armor that was put on top of it, which is I thought that was pretty cool. Basically, they just made a brand new ship, but the ship was always underneath there the entire time. It was just covered by this rugged exterior. But overall, really good episode, really good emotional moments, great storytelling, 9 out of 10 episode. Now, as we get into episode 7, we got more information about Aten, and the beginning of it as well, we see the parents trying to send this transmitter, this communication device through the barrier. They get caught, and obviously like that, but Farah was able to get the communication device through the barrier and get the message sent out to the kids. And they arrive at Aten as well through the ship, but so does the pirates. Because obviously in the previous episode, Silvo got caught and they were trying to like put him on trial and everything like that. He was able to kind of like try to, I guess pitch his, his business proposals to them, like, hey guys, like don't throw me through the airlock. Obviously he's just trying to survive, but he knows this truth about Aten. And I didn't even think, by the way, because the way how episode 5 ended, he had this lightsaber and everything like that, and just thought it was gonna turn into something bigger than it was, but it just didn't turn into anything crazy. He just got caught. But he was able to somewhat convince them to be at least interested in seeing what was happening, with the planet. And we got the actual first look at Aten from the outside. We heard about this nebula gases thing, this barrier that they keep talking about. Obviously they're trying to get through, and they capture the ship and say, this is the key to get through. This is the key to get through. He tells him the tales about the captain getting there, and eventually like Silvo just takes over the ship. He kills Brutus, takes over the ship. He obviously this is the episode we find out that he was indeed the captain that we saw at the beginning of the season. And the message got to the kids. They were able to hear what their parents had to say to them, and it gave them some clues as to what to do. It gave them some motivation, and they were able to convince 33 to help them take back over the ship and escape essentially and get off. It was even hinted that the parents knew what was going on and what the great work exactly was. Obviously it's just this mint, but I feel like there's a lot more to this, obviously. And at this point in the episode when I was watching, I'm like, there has to be just more than just making credits, right? But the parents knew about about the Republic being able to access the planet and how to get through. They said to find a Republic emissary, and they will help you get through. So obviously they knew about this. They knew that sometimes an emissary could come through the planet and things like that, which is something that we'll get into as we talk about the end of this episode going into episode 8. But as they go through the planet, we see like, I'm thinking it's kind of like, this big planet just with a little bit of a barrier, but like, no, like this is a massive barrier. Like you're talking about, they said nebula gases. This is like Jupiter right now. Like this is just, you think it's just this endless gas planet, but then surrounded by this, globe of gas, we see the actual planet, the actual Aten on the inside, which is crazy. And I mean, obviously the barrier, and then we found out that the ship itself was an Aten ship, and that it was an actual Aten ship that was originally captured, so it wasn't even a pirate ship. So that was just actually kind of cool. But they're going through this planet, and then Silvo snuck onto the ship, and obviously it's like, man, this guy just he can't seem to just get away. Like he can't seem to just leave the kids alone. Every time we think that they're safe and they're separate from this dude, they're not. Like he still finds a way somehow. He's slivery. So anyway, they make it down, and he threatens the kids, and he says, this, you're gonna have to follow my lead, yada yada yada. They make it down, and they actually think that he is this, this Republic emissary, right? They think that he's this emissary, and the droids get the ship down. They go down to the vault. We found out there's over 1,139 different vaults just filled with all of this fresh printed credits. And Jad Silvo, Crimson Jack, he's out here just laughing. He's just so excited by just seeing all of this credits just right in front of his face. I mean, obviously it's a ton of money. It's fresh print mint right in front of his face, and he's like, man, the story really wasn't a lie. Like I made it. Like we're here. Nirvana is real. Like we're here. And so obviously he's using this as leverage to some degree. He's still going along with the lie, pretending to be an emissary. The parents are easily fooled, initially thinking that he's an emissary. They don't know any better. They don't really know much about how things are outside of this planet. The kids obviously don't know, but for the safety of themselves and their parents, they decide to go along with it. Like, okay, we're gonna just kind of go along with this plan. But this is like a really good development for the planet, and we're starting to get more and more information about what's really happening here. Who's the supervisor? So many questions start to get asked, which brings me into episode 8. So Silvo knows how smart Fern is. He knows this, and he knows that he can easily manipulate the other three, But Fern is somebody that's a little bit harder to manipulate. She has a very, very strong head on her shoulders. So obviously he's like, no, we don't want her to be separated with her mom. Like, I want to keep eyes on her at all times. And obviously the mom is like, well, I'm going to go with her. She's trying to go along with the plan. She's trying to figure out, like, let's go meet the supervisor together. So they're going ahead to meet the supervisor. They all look up to the supervisor. They all idolize him in some type of way. And then we find out the supervisor is a droid. This whole time, the planet is being ran by a big, giant droid. And you can kind of get hints about this too when we go back to, Haino's planet, and we were able to see what was going on over there, that the entire planet was just ran by droids. So the supervisor droid is out here questioning Silvo. Obviously, he suspects that he's not necessarily an emissary. And, Silvo says, well, I'm an emissary and I'm also a Jedi. And he's questioning. And Fern decides, to take a chance and spill the truth. Like, okay, no, he's not a Jedi. He's not what you say. He's not what he says he is. He's not an actual emissary. He's a pirate. And obviously, the supervisor's like, yep, I knew it. And this is when we found out that, like, well, the last message that we got from the Republic was that Jedi are traitors. Now, obviously, this is a big reference to Order 66. Like, this is a big reference to that. This whole plan, obviously, these planets, Palpatine and all of these planets were set up in the background because obviously they needed to fund this war, right? They needed to be able to fund this big plan for Order 66 and do all of this stuff like that. All of this stuff was planned. They had to have money to do all of this. So they had all these secret planets set up to help fund the Republic and fund the Alliance, the fake Republic at the time, the Separatists and all that. So this adds much deep lore, added lore, extended lore for Star Wars and the prequel era as well, about how they were able to fund everything and how they were able to have so much money to do all this. They just had endless amounts of money because they were able to just straight up print it. And they had these people living on a fake planet with like a fake colony, just literally working their butts off because they're talking about the great work, which is obviously the domination of the Republic and the eventual start of the Empire. So they were working for the Empire the entire time and they had no idea. So that was a pretty big and interesting twist, and I love that they contributed to that story in a lot of ways. He had a pirate invasion, and this whole set of action sequences play out, and all these great moments. And again, I didn't really spend a lot of time on episode 8, but I'm not going to. I mean, it was just a good way to just kind of tie up a lot of those things in general, and we see a lot more of the Jedi power, or I say Jedi power, but like the Force usage powers from Captain Silvo. And we got a little bit of his backstory that he was in fact a Padawan, and he didn't get a lot of training at the time because his master was killed before his eyes. And obviously this set him down this dark path into becoming the person that he is trying to survive. He was already like this before the Jedi found him. And then when he got found, nothing really changed. So we did eventually get some backstory for him, which is something that I wanted to see. So overall, guys, this is how I'm feeling about how everything wrapped up. I felt a little underwhelmed, not gonna lie, by the actual ending of the episode. I liked that some of the storylines got some conclusions, but I felt like this episode opened up a lot more questions and left a lot of questions unanswered. I really wanted to see what was going to happen post, they called the New Republic, and they were able to come down with the X-Wings and defeat the pirates and all this, and, Fern and everything like that. And there was also like some really cool shots in there with them just literally standing on a pile of gold, like so much money, right? They're just standing on so much money, and they don't realize how valuable, how much people literally was about to die for this, right? And people who literally died for this, right? They don't realize how important that is. But obviously they don't care about that. They care about just their friends and their safety, general safety and everything like that. But I just kind of felt a little underwhelmed with how things ended. Like I said, I had more questions than answers. I don't know at the time of me recording this if there's going to be a Skeleton Crew episode 2. I'm definitely interested to see where the kids' stories develop. I would like to see where the planet goes from here. Like what's going to happen with the planet, what's going to happen with the kids, the parents, their storylines. I feel like there's still a lot more questions than answers here. I wasn't completely satisfied how things ended. It just kind of felt really abrupt. You know what I mean? Like the ending just kind of felt a little abrupt, and it was just like, I don't know. I didn't feel like there was a good payoff, in my personal opinion. If you guys felt different, please let me know in the comments down below. But that doesn't take away my overall feelings for the series, though. I feel like the series was refreshing in general. I felt like it was a nice change of pace for Star Wars. Yes, of course, they had Force usage, and obviously that's a thing that they had to include somehow. They had a lightsaber. I mean, trying to do Star Wars without a lightsaber and the Force is can always be tricky. Not everybody can pull it off. Obviously, Andor, I didn't finish Andor, so I don't know if they end up bringing the Force and lightsabers in the show. Please don't spoil it for me. But you know, for the most part, for what I did see, that show didn't rely too heavily on those aspects to make it really good. So you don't need to have the Force or the Jedi to make a show really good or a movie really good, but it does help. But you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like overall the show was pretty straightforward. I'd say I would give it maybe like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 in general. I don't think it was a horrible show, but the way how it ended just kind of meh for me. I felt like there were just so many big plots that were set up, and then the ending just kind of fell flat a little bit for me. But again, overall, I still think the show was pretty good to watch. I had a fun time watching it. I had a fun time doing these breakdowns, and I loved a lot of the references that were made in these episodes. I mean, I enjoyed myself just watching it and just going over it and breaking it down in general. So I really hope that they make a season 2 of some sorts. You know, maybe they fast forward a little bit, the kids are a little bit older. Maybe we're seeing a post at Atten. You know, how will the society continue to function now that their supervisor is gone? You know, I mean, they have a planet full of skilled workers in different fields. You know, can they do manual labor? Is the planet going to end up like Hana's planet? You know, like, so many questions. Obviously, what happened to Hana's planet? Obviously, you know, it got a pirate invasion before, so that's most likely what happened. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what actually happens with all of this. So overall, guys, 7, 8 out of 10. Enjoyed Skeleton Crew overall. And yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, how you felt about this. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm going to be doing these types of reviews and breakdowns for other series and movies as they come out in the future. And obviously some certain shows I will be making exceptions and just straight up doing reactions for, so don't worry, reactions are not gone. But yeah, this is fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Clockmaster out.